Everyone, thank you again for joining us for another episode of the Liverpool Connection Podcast. This is PubChat. We're back in Jonno's garage and with our professional backdrops and lighting.
What a studio this is, Steve. I can tell Joe Rogan's going to be, he's going to be looking at us for the next, for inspiration, I'm sure.
Yeah, any of you guys that are out there that want to help us upgrade our studio here in the garage, you can just send a Venmo to Jonno, and he'll take care of it and start upgrading one piece at a time. Anyway, Jonno, it's Monday night.
Yes.
Right? Yep. Tomorrow is the big match against Nottingham Forest. This is it, really. This is for them. It's a marker of where they've been all season, and for us, it's a revenge match. They've given us our only loss this whole season, way back in September. I mean, just to think of that we haven't lost a Premier League game since September 14th.
Yeah, it's been excellent ever since. It felt like Arne definitely took that loss personally. He was pretty mad about it. It was interesting in the press conference this morning, I guess it was. He seemed like he'd gotten over it a little bit more now that he'd realised, that they're actually not crap. And so he gave him a bit more credit, I guess, now. But I still think his players will have heard enough back then about that game that they'll be pretty fired up, I think, to go and make sure they put in at least a really good performance. But it's massive, yeah. I still find it unlikely that Nottingham Forest will be there at the end of the season in top 2 or 3. It could happen, but injuries and some other things are likely to him. But just the fact that it would get him within 3 points, you just don't want anyone getting that kind of sniff of, because it would give encouragement to other teams is the biggest thing in my opinion.
Well, they come in third, like you said, tied with Arsenal on 40 points. After 20 games. We still are 6 points ahead with a game in hand. And, 40 points, that's where no one even thought Forest would even get 40 points throughout the whole campaign, this season. So they're obviously flying high. They're coming in. I don't think they've given up a goal since December 14th in all competitions. So I think that's either 5 or 6 games. So they're playing well. I mean, that's been their bread and butter, right? Is their defense. They're 1 goal behind us on the for goals against.
They have, Steve. I was doing a little research though, and if you look at expected goals and expected goals against for them, they are the team that is right in their luck the most, for sure. So, like if you go to FotMob, they've got an XG table, so it adds up, how far above they are or below expected goals scored, and then also expected goals against, and then it gives you basically a points total relative to where their actual points total are based on expected goals, and they're by far the biggest in the whole league, above or below. It's like 10-point difference. So they would be predicting, based on their expected goals for and against, they'd be on 30 points rather than 40. And we're doing better than our expected as well by 4 points, not by 10 points better. So, it doesn't necessarily mean tomorrow they're in a good rate of form. It doesn't mean necessarily tomorrow suddenly it's all going to collapse for them. They're confident. Chris Wood's another factor here. You talked about the defense, but he is running way hot, right? So he's got 12 goals. His XG is like 7. So, great. That could continue tomorrow, but at some point it's likely that reverts to a bit more normal. I doubt he's ever been that far above his expected goals. So, fingers crossed that they revert a little more to the mean tomorrow. But we're definitely going to have to work for it, and they'll be up for it. Their fans know that it's a big game. It always historically is a big game against us, and so they'll be up for it the whole game. So. We're going to have to be on it and at it, but based on where our squad's at, I know recent results haven't been in the league, haven't been fantastic, but I think we'll really be up for it.
When you talk numbers, it makes you kind of sexy. just and combined with that beard you have, I mean, I don't know how our subscribers are even going to be able to put up with you.
Well,
now, you know,
I don't know, this husky voice that I've got getting over a cold too, Steve. It's all coming together.
Yeah, it's all coming together. But you know, and I think we had that we shared that table where the expected goals minus the expected goals against, how Liverpool was way off the charts, and like you said, Forest was more in the pack, the middle, and they've really exceeded their expectations on that. And but you know, we are playing at their grounds, a very intimate setting, you know, and they're going to be very up for it. And I know that a lot of people are drawing the parallels from the Leicester team, right? When that team that won the league, they didn't have Europe to contend with, just like Forest doesn't have to. So, but you know, we also were able to rest a lot of players midweek or on the weekend, you know, during that FA Cup game, and so we'll have Salah ready to go, Diaz, you know, Van Dijk, Konate's rested, he didn't play, and so Maka didn't play, so we have Gravenberch didn't play, so we have a lot of the players that got some rest, and they'll be up for this too. I think they kind of realize that this has been the only blemish of the season in the Premier League. They're kind of smarting off that loss to Tottenham in the Carabao Cup. And so I think this is the first chance for a lot of those players to come back and rectify that situation and go, okay, we can't take anybody for granted. We got to take care of our chances. And so I think they'll go into this game. And, you know, you look back at that first game, you know, they scored in the second half. I think we outshot them 3-1. Our expected goals was not as high as we didn't even hit one in that game. So I think we're really misfiring. I think we're like 0.97. Usually we're above one. And so, you know, we outpossessed them, and we'll outpossess them again tomorrow. But they want to play in the counter, and then I think that's where, you know, with Hudson-Odoi and Elanga on the wings, that we really have to be careful not to get caught so far up that we don't have coverage in the back.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be an easy one. It's a balance, you know, like it always is playing a deep block team that has quick guys that counters well. There's not a perfect way to play it, right? Because if you want to create lots of chances, then you're going to have to, you know, risk a little bit of that. It's just a question of just being ready. I think Szoboszlai being back is massive for that, because he can get back, he can cover that ground. You know, there's a lot of talk about Elliott not really getting the chances other than Accrington. And I feel for the kid, but in this particular game, it's like, man, we really need Szoboszlai. And maybe, you know, we're both big fans of Curtis Jones too, and he does cover the ground pretty well. But in this particular game, I think having Szoboszlai in there is huge. And Gravenberch, having had, you know, a week off, should be really fit and rearing to go. So I think there's no doubt it'll be McAllister, Gravenberch, and Szoboszlai. You know, they've all had good spells of form. Obviously, Szoboszlai missed out on a few here and there, and I think people kind of noticed. and especially games against Spurs and things like that, where, you know, there's a lot of chasing, there's a lot of breaks and things like that. I think that's where Szoboszlai really helps that midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. The team practically, in my opinion, picks itself right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, Trent, even though he played on the weekend, he'll play Konate, Van Dijk, Robbo, Gravenberch, Maka, Szoboszlai, Salah, Diaz, and Gakpo.
I mean, that's really the only thing you might question is whether it's Diaz in the middle. I think it most likely is. I don't really know enough about Forest and how to play their back line and so on, and, you know, whether Jota, I mean, he did just play the full 90 against Accrington, so maybe you're thinking he's not going to start, especially he's just coming kind of back into the team.
Yeah, I can't see him starting again. And obviously Nunez, he's serving his 1-game suspension.
Right.
And, you know, Forest, you know, Murillo and Milenkovic, they've been a good partnership. Obviously, their goals against kind of shows. And for a team that bunkers back like that, they're not. They don't ship a lot of goals, but how can we draw them out, right? It's how are we going to be? Are we going to be patient? And sometimes when on those teams that bunker, you kind of almost have to let them counter every once in a while to bring out the spacing.
Well, and who was the team where the first half we just kept throwing in crosses that never worked?
That's when the Trent broke
yeah,
it was Southampton
recently. Was it Southampton? I mean, we gotta know not to do that right now. So just throwing in crosses, and that's not going to work against Forest. So what did work was when people made a run in behind that back line. Soboslai or McAllister can do that. Someone breaking in, and I think it was Jones in the second half did that, or maybe it was Maka. But we got to be patient in that regard and have people running behind that back line. It doesn't really matter who it is as long as there's guys to cover, and make sure that we're not, too many committed. And so I think we've learned that lesson a couple of times recently, and so I don't think we'll make the mistake like that first half again where we had like 40 crosses. And so I think we're ready for it. I think there's no real reason we shouldn't be well prepared for it, and the squad's despite everybody freaking out at the beginning of January as soon as the defender goes down, the squad's in a pretty healthy place. Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of the freak out is maybe because when Joe Gomez is out, that's your cover for four different defensive positions. But I mean, you can't really complain when you got one injury, out of the entire senior squad, and then obviously Nunes with the suspension. But that's it. I mean,
yeah, we're pretty fortunate at this point to have just that Joe Gomez, and he should be back in a couple weeks. So to bolster the numbers again, Endo has done his role to giving people rest in the back line. Kwanzaa obviously coming in and getting the job done on the weekend.
And we also got a new signing in that the Italian guy.
Chiesa?
Yeah. And the January signing already.
Yeah, it's like a new signing, Jonno.
I mean, would you be upset if you saw him, coming on in the last 5-10 minutes if we needed, some inspiration? I mean, the difficult part would be Salah going off, maybe, but.
Well, and Salah's done that before. Salah can go into the middle, right?
I guess more likely Jota's the one that comes on if he's not starting, and then maybe he comes on for like Soboslai and he plays in that attacking role in the midfield more so. But
yeah, if anything, Chiesa does bring us another option. He's a proven technical player. He looks like he's getting up to speed with the Premier League, and the more minutes he gets, it maybe not for tomorrow, but for games coming up when the Champions League starts back up, and we have to play those two games that don't really amount to anything for us. But he can, any minutes that we can spare off Salah going into the business end, that's got to bode well for the team in general. So.
Do you think back in Italy he was dreaming of the days of playing against Plymouth Argyle?
I think he was dreaming of the days he would score against Accrington Stanley. Yeah. But
Plymouth away will be a new one for him. He'll get his second start in that one. Actually, first start. So.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he looks like he's enjoying life.
Yeah.
So
I'm rooting for him to do well.
So tomorrow. We're not looking for a draw there. Obviously, we haven't lost any games on the road yet this season,
right.
And I guess that's kind of obvious when we've only lost one game all season. So, but our away form has been pretty good, and I think I'm looking forward. It's going to be a cracking match. I think they're going to be up for it. Their crowd is going to be up for it. I think our the Reds are going to be up for it. Slot's going to be up for the challenge. So I think, but these are the kind of games you as a fan of the Premier League, you kind of look forward to having the two contrasting styles, and then there's some ex-Reds on Forest that that always adds a little bit of spice to it. Nico Williams and the big lad up front. they could never get a work permit for us, but somehow he's playing for Forest. But, so they have Gibbs White in the middle that's been playing well for them, and so I think for the romantic, everybody likes to see Forest do well, but for us, we're looking forward to extending that lead and getting it back to 9 points, and because Forest they're going to take some points off other teams, in the top six. So, if we can take care of business tomorrow, that really bodes well for us and, moving forward. So predictions, Jonno.
Well, I was thinking about it, and everything tells you it's likely to be a real tight game. All our games pretty much recently have been just by one goal. And, but then the more that becomes the more and more obvious result, the more I usually kind of think, well, football just has a way of just flipping it a bit. So even though all logic dictates it's, we should be looking at hoping for a 1-0 or a 2-1 or something, I think it might go a little different. I think we might get like a 3-1.
Okay, well, I'm going to go to 1-0 then, since you're going 3-1. I think it'll be a cagey affair. They're going to play real tight, and we're going to have to be patient. It might be in the second half when there's a goal scored. But hopefully I'm wrong. I've been wrong many times. And
I'm basing that purely on the fact that every time you think you know what's about to happen, usually something flips up.
But that's why we love the Premier League,
exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Because anything can happen. And 2 o'clock kickoff our time, evening kickoff in Liverpool, and hopefully I know the fans will be there ready. And
and the away fans, I think, now that this whole Trent thing has happened, and I think a lot of people kind of got it out of their system is probably the wrong way to say about it, but maybe, it was always a pent-up thing about the contract. It was always going to happen when Trent had a bad game or something. And I think, especially the away fans, everybody's going to be right behind the team and just kind of ignore that. It's kind of is what it is for a while. It's just, and he's had a couple of good games, and everybody's just going to be right behind everybody. And I think they see the lineup, the fans are going to be excited. And there's no reason for us not to go there and be optimistic for a way.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I'm always optimistic, Jonno. But I'm kind of reserved in my optimism this week, just because they have a good structure. Their coach, who was coach of the year or coach of the month in December. It's weird to see how structured they are now, whereas when he was coaching Wolves and Spurs, he was all over the place, Yeah. So it's very interesting to see how he's changed his tactics for this team. When he hardly played defense when he was with Wolves. They were like up and down, wide open all the time. They're trying to outscore everybody, and the fullbacks are bombing up and leaving space all over the place. And
I do feel for some coaches sometimes, because it's just like, they get labeled after one period with one set of players and one team. They get labeled, a success or a failure, and then it's like, and a lot of it is just down to luck. There's way more injuries play a way bigger factor than everybody wants to admit. I don't not necessarily saying that's the case with him in his previous times at Spurs and Wolves, but I think most of these coaches are probably better than we give them credit for. We don't like to admit it when they're on another team. And he's doing well with what he has. Like I say, I don't necessarily expect it to last that long, but hey, good for them if they keep it going late and still end up with a European spot. Maybe in Champions League, but the longer they keep it up, good for them. But yeah, we got to make sure that they don't come away with anything. A tie, I say that a tie. And even a loss, it's not the end of the world. Yes, it would be, worrisome, and questions would start being asked about the squad, given a few of the results recently. But we built ourselves a cushion. And, as long as it doesn't last more than a blip, then, it's not the worst thing in the world. I won't be saying that immediately after the game tomorrow, but, I'm trying to be a little more, what's the word, relaxed about it, I guess, for the moment. But I still think chances are we're going to win.
Okay. Well, we'll know tomorrow after the match. You'll be at the pub.
I'll be at the pub.
I'll be at the pub, so we'll bring a podcast right after, do a review. So until then, hope you guys enjoy your day. Get ready for the match. Put on your notifications, subscribe, like our channel, and we appreciate you guys joining us. And we will see you after the match tomorrow. Cheers.
Cheers.